Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today I'm going to be doing a video on hipfire. Now, somebody challenged me to do a video where I only hipfired my weapons, all of my weapons, never aim down sights and see how I could do. And so basically for this, I decided to pick the P90 because in my opinion it has some of the best hipfire accuracy, although it does kick back quite a bit. So I played around with the gun a little, started using it with a flash suppressor, and then I upgraded to using the muzzle brake on there to try and compensate for some of the vertical recoil. It's a little bit trickier compensating recoil when you're hip firing because your sensitivities are different from when you're aiming down sight. I threw a laser sight onto the side of the P90 to further improve the hipfire accuracy, and I didn't bother with any sort of optic as we're not going to be aiming down sight, so it doesn't really matter. May as well get rid of some of that extra screen clutter. For my sidearm, I'm running a 93R, also with a laser sight. Of course, I've got the SMA because I'm playing as engineer, and I can't aim down sights with the SMA either. So I was using it mostly to sort of hip fire away walls and pieces of cover to try and expose enemies. Now, the P90 is never going to be good at range, whether you're hip firing or even aiming down sights. This gun just doesn't have enough damage potential. It does have a nice hefty 50 round magazine, so you can certainly put enough rounds into your enemies, but you're only going to be doing decent damage in close quarters. It can do 21 damage maximum, but that's only provided if you're with 8 meters or closer. Beyond that, it's going to start taking a lot more than 5 shots to down your enemy, and that's what you want to avoid. One of the most challenging aspects of only running hipfire was that when I'm aiming at targets that are somewhat medium range, definitely ranges that I would be aiming down sights to hit normally, my accuracy was really bad because I'm using my hipfire sensitivity. Everything isn't lining up quite right, so I'm missing a lot of shots, not because the gun isn't good, but because I just can't line them up properly. So that was probably the most difficult part of it. The best part of it is that in close quarters I had a huge advantage of not needing to aim down sights. I could always start shooting before my enemy. I can be much more mobile. It just doesn't take me that extra split second to sort of get my bearings. Also, when you're not aiming down sight in close quarter combat, you have a much larger field of view. You can maintain that larger field of view, and it helps you sort of just keep your bearings when you're in the thick of combat. Now, because this is the first time I've really challenged myself to do nothing but hipfire for an entire round, I was actually surprised by some of the weird things that got in the way. Like when you get shot by an opponent in the middle of a firefight, the screen shake, basically the kickback, the visual look of the recoil when you get hit by an opponent is much more exaggerated. At least it feels that way. So if you're shooting somebody close quarters, that can throw you off and mess up your aim, and it certainly lost me a lot more firefights than I was expecting. I think it's significantly more intense than it was in Battlefield 3, as I used to run MP7 hipfire all the time and I didn't really notice the same issue. As you can see, the 93R is a very effective sidearm. It's great for hipfire, especially when you have that laser sight on there. And it's pretty much what I run all the time, even when I'm not going for some sort of specific loadout. It's just a great sidearm to have in all situations. Now, one of the more difficult things about reviewing guns or even just doing videos on guns that are really best in close quarters is actually finding maps that are good for close quarters. I've said it so many times, but Battlefield 4 really doesn't have any maps that are catered to specifically close quarter combat, much like Battlefield 3 had. Battlefield 3 had an entire expansion that was dedicated to close quarter combat, but it also shipped with maps like No Shark Canals, which really catered to that close quarter style of gameplay. Battlefield 4 certainly has some close quarter areas on some maps, but there's also a lot of really long range areas, particularly when you're trying to travel between, say, domination points or getting across the map in a way that's not going to expose you to long range distances. Some maps you can do it, but there's usually only 1 or 2 paths, and often you're exposed at some angle to somebody who's got a very long range weapon. So you feel very exposed and very incapable in so many situations. So you really just have to hide in close quarter areas, only stick to close quarter areas, but it does limit your maneuverability, and that's one of your biggest assets in any Battlefield game, is being able to move around the map, go where you want, engage people at ranges that you want to engage them at, But once you limit yourself to extreme close quarters, now you have cut yourself off from a huge portion of the map, and anytime you're in a long range engagement, you're either guaranteed going to die or you're going to waste a lot of ammo and barely come out of it by the skin of your teeth. Here in Hainan Resort, I'm really just limited to the upper level and the lower level of the hotel here. If I get caught outside somewhere, I'm in a bad situation. If I'm all the way across the map, if I spawn across the map, trying to get back to the hotel is very difficult. There was very few times I spawned out there and was actually able to make it back into the hotel and then survive for a while. So once you're out of the hotel on Hainan Resort, it's going to be very difficult. Now here on Flood Zone, the rooftop is a death trap. Basically what I'm doing right now is a really ballsy move. It's very risky, but what I want to do is I want to get off the rooftop. I want to get inside of these buildings, running along these sort of spiral staircases and the internal areas where I can sort of set myself up for close quarter engagements. If I hang out on this roof for too long, I'm going to get sniped. I'm going to get picked off by some long range weapons. So here I am now on the bottom level, working my way up these spiral staircases, staying indoors, and really just kind of sneaking up on people, flanking, and keeping it close quarters. As soon as I get out in the open, now I'm engaging people at their ranges, not my ranges. Now, after having used the P90 for this entire play session and not being particularly impressed with its accuracy or really the damage output that much, I was looking through the Synthic stats and I thought, you know what, the PDWR probably would have been a much better choice for a hipfire only weapon. It seems to have far less recoil, the damage output seems to be on the same level pretty much, and it would probably be a little bit more effective at range. Ultimately though, the playstyle with the PDWR wouldn't really change between that and the P90. It just sort of shifts some of the focus from extreme close range to a little bit further range while being forced into that hipfire mode. So I think I would feel more comfortable with a slightly more versatile hipfiring weapon, and I think the PDWR certainly falls into that category. Now by the end of the day, I was not particularly impressed or really enjoying the hipfire gameplay that much. Not only do I feel like I was at a huge disadvantage against pretty much everybody else on the battlefield, but just the screen shake was overly exaggerated. Animations don't seem to line up too well. Your gun seems to be sort of swaying around the screen, yet you're still shooting on target. Things just feel clunky and awkward. It's nowhere near as enjoyable as the hipfire gameplay was in Battlefield 3. I have fond memories of running nothing but MP7 and just hipfiring people for days on all the close quarter maps using the M5K in hipfiring. Back then, certain maps and certain areas definitely had a tactical advantage for using hipfire only weapons. In Battlefield 4, it feels like I'm just really trying to force that style of gameplay, and it just doesn't want to work. Let me know what you guys think about hipfire in Battlefield 4. Are there any interesting gun combinations that you have that you think work really well? As always guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap signing off.